to demonstrate how to stand in alignment. The first thing that we want to pay attention to for standing is how are we loading on both of our legs. So really typical that a favorite is to put more weight on one leg and keep the other one out. As much as possible, we want to distribute evenly through our left and our right. We want to make sure that our feet are facing forward, and we want to stand the width for our own pelvis. And one marker for that is to find the markers on the pelvis. And these are the as-is markers. It stands for anterior superior iliac spine. And you can find them by finding your crests, taking your fingers forward until you find the curve in the bony part. Easier to find usually when you're laying down and the tissue is softer, but this is the ridge. So if I put my pinky pads on the bony markers there and put my fingers down, this line should bisect my ankles. So I'm standing for my hip width with my feet facing forward. So that's finding our foundation. The other part of finding our foundation is to be able to maximize our center, our loading with gravity. So when we can have gravity going through our center, that means our joints are loaded more appropriately and our muscles can be firing more effectively. So I'm going to turn side view, and I'm going to show you, this is how I prefer to, or I don't know if I should say prefer now, but this is a typical standing position that we see whether you are in pregnancy or not. I haven't met anybody who isn't doing this actually in our culture, and that is standing with the pelvis forward and the shoulders back. So hopefully you can get a good view of what this looks like. It's a lot of pressure in the lumbars, and this SI joint is jammed into a closed pack position. It's putting a lot of pressure out onto the pubic bone, creating some pubic symphysis pain, pubic pain, groin pain. This pressure out here, also our rib cage is now behind. Some people really lift up with their rib cage, so this is lengthening this linea alba, which is the attachment for our abdominals, and many people get diastasis recti, which is abdominal separation. One way to really remedy this is to get loaded in your center, find gravity, and get your joints stacked. So one of the ways to change this, it's not about tilting the pelvis. A lot of people will say tuck your butt under. It's not that. It's getting our reference point. So we're going to be looking at midpoints. Midpoint of shoulder, midpoint of hip, midpoint of knee, and midpoint of the ankle, which is that ankle bone. Get a line, get something to dangle down, which I don't have right now, but that can be a really good way to just get objective. Get in the mirror and really look at yourself. So one thing that I teach people to do is we're standing like this. Think about just moving from the hips. It's shifting the hips back as you allow your trunk to come forward. That lets the rib cage get stacked over the pelvis, which is stacked over the heels. Don't worry about the head right now. That's going to come along. When there's a lot of tissue tension, it's hard to really find it. So what we're trying to do is get lined up. Typically this is what we see, and especially as baby starts to get bigger, we see this more. And then there's more pressure here, and more pressure here, more pressure on the forefeet. So what we're going to do is shifting the hips back, trunk gets stacked. Now you try.